Spider-Man first appeared in Amazing Fantasy issue number 15 in August of 1962. In that time, the web slinger has managed to become a cultural icon that has captivated many people across many generations and around the world. But we aren't here to talk about the countless movies, toys, comic book iterations. We aren't even here to talk about the most popular games that you may have seen on the NES, Super Nintendo, PS2, or PS4. We are here to talk about a video game that until 2022 I had absolutely no clue about. I'm talking about The Amazing Spider-Man on DOS. So here's a little backstory. I was on Twitch and a viewer came in while I was playing Time Lord, another obscure game but for the NES. We chatted for a while, and he began to talk about his record for the Spider-Man on DOS. I literally had no idea what DOS was because I didn't own a computer until the late 90s. Through that conversation though, he and I have become very good friends, and I've played this game on occasion. But how does this game from 1990 stack up? Is it good? Is it bad? First off, I'd like to get into the specifics. Oxford Digital Enterprises was in charge of developing the game, and Kevin Ayre was in charge of the DOS release. I'm not 100% sure, but he may have been in charge of both the Amiga and the DOS releases, and maybe even, I don't know if there's a Commodore 64 version of the game, but I do know he's specifically in charge of the DOS release. And my friend Cold Iron of the Stone Monkey Research Laboratories was able to get a hold of him and found that the game's different rooms were all developed simultaneously and that the team would just transfer their codes between each other. In all, Spider-Man has 256 animation frames, and the team was quite proud in particular of how Spider-Man's sprite turned out. Unlike most Spider-Man games in recent times, The Amazing Spider-Man is a puzzle platformer where Spidey uses his spider powers to traverse a movie studio to rescue Mary Jane from Mysterio. You can see the story in the manual. Mysterio breaks into Peter Parker's apartment and kidnaps Mary Jane, not knowing that, of course, Peter and Spider-Man are the same person. When Spidey arrives, he's hit with gas that knocks him unconscious, and Mysterio tells him when he wakes up, he would rather see him fail to rescue a defenseless citizen than kill him. It's kind of a weird idea, but I guess for the story's sake, I'll let it slide. Oh, and I forgot, he can't use his Spidey senses because of the gas. The manual also features details about the characters, the different sprites in the game, and the controls. Speaking of the controls, at first, I felt the controls to be a little confusing because I had never used a number pad as a controller. But with some help, I felt Spider-Man move smoothly, and the more that I have played it, the better I am at controlling the web slinger. Whether I'm glitching through walls or maneuvering around the various enemies that are trying to kill you, such as robots that look oddly similar to a certain robot from a certain movie from the 70s. Talking about Star Wars, guys. I found it quite amusing that Mysterio would choose this location, and the enemies were all based on movie characters. He was a former stuntman, so it's very fitting. But going back to the controls, if you press the spacebar, Spidey starts his web motion, then pressing the directional key will allow you to go in that direction, which is useful when trying to swing across large gaps or freeze enemies. But I forgot to mention, there are certain tiles that will damage you if you aren't careful, but you can also freeze enemies on top of them with your web to take them out. This is especially useful when you make it to Mysterio's end and take on the big bad himself, Mysterio. Gameplay-wise, I found the game to be fine. The speedrun offers many ways to break the game, but casually, I think it felt a little slow for my taste. And maybe that's not a knock on the game, but rather a knock on my impatient personality. I feel the sound effects do a good enough job of making you feel like you're controlling Spider-Man, and I can really commend the sprite design. I think they did a great job for an early 90s title. But one of my main gripes about the game is the background music. It's 2.5 minutes of the same song throughout the whole game. And playing it casually, you will be hearing a lot of it. It reminds me of the episode of How I Met Your Mother when Marshall and Ted are taking a road trip, and the only song that's playing is a tape by the Proclaimers, which features 500 Miles over and over. They go through phases of hating it and loving it, and I feel this song has the same effect. There are points where I'm humming along with the tune, and then there's points where I'm just trying to drown it out and play the game and ignore it. It can get quite annoying after a while. But being a puzzle platformer, there is a degree of difficulty that goes along with it, and some of the puzzles are not intuitive. Like the one where you have to move these rocks and platforms out of the way, or the one in the Wild West area. But I do feel the game does an okay job of starting you out with easier puzzles. But by the act where you have to traverse the lion maze, you better be very patient because it's easy to mess up, and without a guide, it can be very difficult. One comical thing I have always loved about this game is Spidey's life bar is a still of him. And when you take damage, it reveals a skeleton. It's sort of a dark take on it, but that is what makes it so amusing to me. But don't worry, you can get to each take and fill your life back up as you go, as many times as you want. Many of the room's titles are based on popular music, movies, and I think television. I'm not sure and I may be wrong, but I know I have seen Bad Moon Rising as a room title, which is a nod to a CCR song. I found the names to be quite clever, while also admiring the work that the developers put into different rooms. There are points where you have to use your head as gravity can change, or the walls are covered in slime so that Spidey can't stick to them. There's a basement where you have to shut off water to progress, or if you want, you could just go through the walls. Over the last 2 years, SMR has been breaking the game and finding different ways to just go through walls, which is quite a sight to see. There's even a glitch that helps you beat the game in under 30 seconds. Overall, I feel The Amazing Spider-Man is pretty interesting. It wouldn't have been a game that I would have picked up if it wasn't for my friend, but it isn't a bad game either. It's just a different pace than I'm used to. There's a lot of positives to be taken away from it, but from what I've heard, DOS platformers are not the most revered, but I found this one to be okay. I don't know for sure, and I'd like to try other DOS games, so let me know in the comments if you have any that you'd like me to try. But as for The Amazing Spider-Man, it's something that if you love Spidey, or just love puzzle platformers, I feel you should give a try at least once. Don't forget to have a great day, and thanks for watching. See you again, my friends.